Welcome to Ask the Funeral Director with Mike Voyajakis. Brought to you by Voyage Funeral Home and Crematorium. Now, here's your host. At the Cork and Flame, we're always cooking and ready with the finest for all our customers any time of day or night. From breakfast brunch to lunch and dinner, steak and seafood to ribs and more. The Cork and Flame Fine Dining, always fresh, with fabulous desserts and a narration of the urban landscape, plus a passion for quality food. Eat, drink, chill. Cork and Flame, 3106 Portage Avenue. There's no hurry, so sit back and relax. One, two, there we go. We are back. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ask the Funeral Director on this Wednesday, February the 5th. Obviously, the audio is on, but, you know, maybe it's the government.
Could be.
Playing tricks on me.
Could be.
It wouldn't surprise me. How about you?
You know what?
Could be somebody else in this province.
Nothing surprises me anymore when it comes to the government.
Could be somebody else in this province who's doing this to me. They seem to be.
Brad, don't be hanging out with me.
No, that's what I've heard.
These guys are all over me. It's unbelievable. You know, what's funny in life is, you know, when you want to tell the truth, somebody else wants you to shut up. And if you're strong and you believe in what you're standing for, you don't shut up, but you fight back. And that's what I've been doing and paying the consequences in one way or another. And I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing, and nothing's going to stop me. Actually, only one thing is going to stop me. Going to do some good evenings here and hellos. Oh, Steve Bage was the first one on the show tonight.
He sure was. He got there early.
Hey, Steve, Green. How you doing? Nice to see you on the show. Number one. Steve's number one tonight. Gord, number two. Kathy, tickle, tickle, tickle. I can't say her name without doing that.
If she lived closer, you and her would see each other like every other day. Every other day for sure.
Patricia, hi, everyone from Cornwall, Ontario.
Debbie Lamoureux says, ding, ding, ding from Westgate.
Ding, ding, ding. Jeffrey, hello from the Creek. I wonder where the Creek is. Stage Creek or the Creek?
Speedy Creek.
Oh. Dan Ross from Ross, Manitoba.
Don't you know where Speedy Creek is?
No. Where's that? What are you talking about?
Really? You don't know Speedy Creek? Holy cow.
Kathy Tickle says, volume. We got the volume, Kathy.
It's working.
We're good.
It better be working.
We're good now.
I see it's working.
Gail says, Brad, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
No, those were old.
That's old? Okay,
yeah.
Good. Cause
Father Nicholas Tabakis, God bless you all. That's the Greek Orthodox priest right there.
How about you go to the bottom? Just give us a thumbs up that you can hear us, because I'm now concerned about all this.
They can hear you. Got sound now. Good evening, everyone. Margaret Patterson, Debbie, Terry Good. Hey, Terry, how's it going? You want to say hi to somebody?
Yeah, well, Gail Rathbone's there.
Is your mic still working?
My mic is working, yeah. Brenda Warwick. Good evening, Brenda. Hey, Canada Nano Silver. No sound, guys. We got it.
What's Canada Nano Silver? What is that?
What is it? I don't have a clue.
What is that?
You have to ask that other guy.
Kevin says he's going to be on our show. Says he's going to sponsor the show.
We're getting closer. We're getting closer.
All talk, no action, Kevin. Get on it.
Oh, come on now. There's lots of action. I met for 2 hours yesterday with Kevin, and he's a great guy.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. Lives right beside me, actually. Sarah Newfield, Barb Green. A lot of people.
Miranda Simkin.
Tonight is
Vicky
going to
Moore
be a great show.
from
It's
Nova
been-
Scotia.
Nova Scotia, wow.
It's like halfway around the planet.
Sherry, Vicky Moore from Nova Scotia, yeah, all the way out there.
That's what I said. Long ways.
It's going to be an interesting show tonight. So, yeah, if you believe in what you believe in and you're strong in your heart about it, stand up, and it doesn't matter what anybody says, even if there's consequences. Keep going. God will keep you strong.
So
That's what I
what's
believe.
the plan here? You've got lots to talk about. So where do we start tonight? What are we going to kick it off with?
Where do you want to start?
I don't know. You never really discussed too many details about what we're doing here
Couldn't
tonight.
get a hold of you all day today.
I know. I've been busy.
You've been like gone. I think we'll go to Dan Ross says,
You got a
now
video?
the sound is good.
Oh boy, Dan. Thank you. You got a video you want to see? Is that what you were trying to say here?
Jimmy D's Rock Talk. Rock on. Wonder what that is.
I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to play a video. Come back.
Thanks for
and we're
listening, Jimmy D's Rock Talk. It's cool. Cool that
Amen
you're here,
to
man.
that, Debbie.
Absolutely.
So we're going to play our first video of the night. Lots going on in the show tonight. But as we move on, we'll talk about things.
What's up with that? Is that like Google Earth we're going to jump into here, or what's going on in this video?
I don't know what that is. You got that up there, not me.
I'm just following your direction, pal. Are you ready to do this?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
All right.
Let's give her. Well, we're pushing the buttons.
I don't know what Google Earth is doing up there. We're going to find
Recognize this place? This is Brandon, Manitoba. Population, just over 50,000. A small, beautiful city like many others that dot the Canadian landscape. Now, imagine if every person in Brandon vanished. Well, since 2016, we've lost a city the size of Brandon to drugs. That's 49,000 Canadian lives lost, more than died fighting for Canada in the Second World War. They are real people, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, fathers, mothers, friends to thousands more. Then there are the countless others now living in the hell of addiction and homelessness. Close to 8 out of 10 of those overdose deaths involve fentanyl. It wasn't like this before the Liberals radically liberalized drugs. Now, Canada has become a drug manufacturing hotspot. Super labs in Canada synthesize the drugs using precursor chemicals, the ingredients that make fentanyl. These labs look like scenes from Breaking Bad, but it's not happening in New Mexico, in a TV drama. It's happening in Canada, in real life, right now. In November 2024, police dismantled what they described as the, quote, largest, most sophisticated illicit drug super lab in the country in Falkland, British Columbia. One of the accused was out of jail after earlier convictions. Police said they seized 54 kilograms of fentanyl. Now, that might not sound like much at first, but remember this, it takes just 2 milligrams of fentanyl to kill a person. That means there was enough fentanyl found in this lab alone to kill 27 million people. But it gets worse. Police found enough ingredients to make over 95 million lethal doses, enough to kill every Canadian twice. Police also found 390 kilograms of methamphetamine, small explosives, ammunition, silencers, high-capacity magazines, body armor, $500,000 in cash, and 89 firearms, many of which were, quote, loaded and ready to be used. Days earlier, police discovered a super lab in Langley, BC, that they say was capable of producing multiple kilograms of fentanyl on a weekly basis. A Government of Canada report confirmed, and I quote, seizures of Canada-sourced fentanyl in places like the U.S. and Australia suggest that domestic production is likely exceeding domestic demand and that Canada is now a source and transit country for fentanyl to some markets. The number of seizures of fentanyl at the Canada-U.S. border more than tripled between 2023 and 2024, rising from 239,000 doses to 839,000. How did this happen? Well, the NDP Liberals happened. They legalized fentanyl possession in BC, told prosecutors to stop pursuing drug offenders, and worst of all, passed Bill C-5, which eliminated mandatory jail time for the production and trafficking of hard drugs like fentanyl, encouraging the worst criminals to come back into our communities and take up shop here. The Falkland Super Lab that police discovered had ties to a transnational criminal network that spans from Mexico all the way to China. They're killing our people and many in other countries, which is now endangering our trade with our closest ally. President Trump has said the reason that he's tariffing Canada is because of lethal drugs flowing over the border. Whether we agree with him or not, we shouldn't be taking action to stop drugs just to please him. We should do it so that not one more mother must bury her face in her hands in agony after her son overdosed and died in a back alley. We must stop the drugs to save our people and to put Canada first. It starts with locking up mass traffickers and manufacturers of this poison with penalties that fit the crime. But what is the crime? Let's call mass fentanyl trafficking what it is: mass murder. Selling 40 milligrams of this poison is enough to kill 20 people. It's like spraying bullets into a crowd. You might not know who you are killing, but statistically, it's certain that someone will die. That's why I'm announcing today, as part of my Canada First plan, that common sense conservatives will bring in mandatory prison sentences, including life sentences for anyone caught trafficking, producing, or exporting over 40 milligrams of fentanyl, and 15 years for traffickers caught with between 20 milligrams and 40 milligrams. The people we will lock away are not non-violent drug addicts. People with addiction are the real victims of these traffickers, and my government will offer them life-saving treatment and recovery services. Nor are we targeting the small-time dealer on a street corner, though he will face penalties too. Rather, my new law will treat fentanyl kingpins who kill thousands of Canadians each year like the mass murderers they are. By locking up the big bosses and throwing away the key, we will cut the head off the poisonous fentanyl snake. All of this to save lives, bring our loved ones home drug-free, secure free trade, and most of all, put Canada first.
We've lost a lot of Canadians to fentanyl, Mike, a lot.
I could tell you as a funeral director, many of the overdoses we do, and we do many of them, are because of fentanyl. Fentanyl is on our streets. Our children are getting a hold of them, and they don't know how lethal it really is. But what people don't know is they're mixing fentanyl into everything. They're mixing fentanyl even into marijuana. So you don't know what you're getting, what you're taking.
They're not, wait, now we got to make a correction here because I want to make sure that people understand. They're not mixing fentanyl into your store-bought marijuana.
Of course not.
Marijuana.
It's the street marijuana.
It's the street marijuana. That's correct. You go buy it off somebody on the street, that could have anything in it.
That's because they want it bigger, better, and more powerful.
Well, they're always looking for more.
So, you know, kids smoking a joint, and all of a sudden that's not powerful enough for them. And they put that fentanyl in there, and it gives him a kick, and then he gets addicted to something else.
Heroin, crack, there's a list, right? A long list.
Yeah.
And it's not a good list. And, you know, I want to mention this because they mentioned Vancouver and British Columbia, and that's where it starts. The
Safe consumption sites.
The Conservatives are about to try to change all that, and I think it's a good move on their behalf. But let's talk about
what they're doing in Winnipeg.
Well, that's coming up. But Pierre had a lot to say there, and I'm proud of him for speaking up about that issue. I came from Lethbridge, Alberta, so I know exactly what went on there with the safe consumption site in Lethbridge. There was a great big embezzlement. You can look it all up. It's a long story. And what's going to happen is they're going to try to open one here in Winnipeg. When that happens,
they are going to open one.
They are going to open one now? Okay, there was a question as to whether or not it could have possibly happened. Sounds like it's going through now. Kevin Klein of the Winnipeg Sun's been doing a fantastic job covering that with Marty Gold. I'm pretty sure that they're going to be speaking to some folks out of Lethbridge who've seen exactly what the safe consumption does to the site, to our own citizens. And it's disgusting what happens. It turns the downtown core into, well, a free-for-all tent city. There's people on the street corners that are looking like zombies. Just like in Vancouver. If you've ever been down East Hastings, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've seen any of the videos online about what's going on in British Columbia, it's crazy what's happening to our citizens. These are Canadians. We don't want this happening to any of us.
And it's going to happen right here in Winnipeg. It's going to be your family members. They're going to be affected by this.
Yeah, moms, dads, kids, grandparents,
uncles,
aunts,
they give you a
cousins?
site where you could get your drugs and smoke them and do whatever you're going to do with those drugs
yeah.
right here in city.
Well, if you die if you die while you're in the safe consumption site, somebody runs over to you with Narcan and fucking jacks you right in the heart, and then you know what happens. you're dead. Or they save you and you get to try again in another hour.
You know, it's
crazy.
I had a talk with a paramedic recently, and basically he was telling me that when they inject somebody with Narcan, right?
Yeah, Narcan, yeah.
And Narcan, and they get up a couple of minutes later and they walk away, and there's nowhere to take these people.
No. They don't go to the
They just
hospital.
release them.
They don't go to the hospital. They go nowhere. They give them more drugs. They could go out the back of the door, buy more, and come back in.
What they should be doing with these people is having a place. We have so many empty buildings in Manitoba. A place in Winnipeg where they could take them, lock them up, hold them there, get them help them with their addiction problems. This is another catch and release.
Yep.
So injecting somebody with a drug that saves them and then releasing them back on the street is another catch and release, but just in a different manner.
You want to put money into something good and help the people of Manitoba and Winnipeg, put it into addiction centers where they're getting the correction that they need,
And-
not giving them more drugs and saying, here, go kill yourself.
And
But,
they say-
but you know, that's exactly what the NDP and the Liberals want.
Right.
It's depopulation, no different than the World Economic Forum.
You know what?
Stop me already.
You gotta wonder this: do they want the streets to be complete chaos like they are? Like, for example, we did fighting back against crime and fighting back against the justice system and the rotating doors that are killing people in our streets, putting criminals back in our streets the minute after they commit a crime. And you wonder, do they want this chaos on the streets? Do they want us not to be? And it's funny because it seemed like. And I'm going to say this out loud because I'm really frustrated about it. When we were doing this kick on fighting back against crime and the justice system, it seemed like nobody really cared.
Right.
And it's upsetting because unless we stand together and unite as one, it doesn't matter, because when they see 4 or 5 people gathering, or 150 people or 200 people, that's a drop in a bucket to them.
100%.
And they're saying the same thing. Nobody cares. And you know what? If you have young children who are going to be teenagers soon, young adults, they're going to be affected by this. Having a safe consumption site right here in Winnipeg is dangerous. It should
That
be
is
accepted.
not a good example of common sense at all, period.
And you know what? Why don't we as people get together in the millions and say, no, this isn't happening in our city? But no, we sit back, we let it happen, and then we complain about it afterwards.
It's, you know, being a coach for this many years, I sit back and it bothers the heck out of me, because I don't want to see any kids that I've ever coached go through that. And thinking back to what happened in Lethbridge, I know 2 kids that went and visited that safe consumption site and are now, well, trying to go to rehab, and they've been in rehab many times over the last 4 years.
And the same thing goes with me, Brad. I've coached just like you have. Brad and I have a lot in common. And one thing you do as a coach is try to guide that player or that team player to the best place you possibly can in this world by guiding them and protecting them and giving them advice. And, you know, when one of your players gets into these sites and fails, it almost feels like you failed as a coach.
100%.
As hard as you tried and as best as you tried,
I wish
it
they would have
seems
reached
like
out.
you
I
failed.
wish they would have reached out and called me. I would have taken him to the outdoor rink or taken him somewhere to go rent ice, just to get him away from whatever he was
So if
involved
you're
in.
a young person out there and you're
Crazy.
struggling with addictions, reach out and get help. I know it's hard to get help from the government. It's almost impossible. They turn you away half of the times. But like I said, we have tons of empty buildings right here in Winnipeg that we can convert into safe consumption sites, not safe consumption, safe places where they can get help, where they can get rehab, where they can get fixed, not a
Addiction.
catch and release.
Addiction centers.
Addiction centers. And they need more than addiction centers. It's a place where they need to be introduced back into the world as people that are going to be not a menace to
They
society.
need to find themselves, and they need the time to find themselves.
And that's the problem. We do need to start a petition. We do need to start trouble. Listen, if you're watching this show, then you know that I'm a firecracker, so is Brad, and we're doing it for the right reasons. The right reasons is for you and your families. This isn't about popularity or, you know, being better than the other person. It's about helping your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, saving them possibly from getting involved in drugs and dangerous gang
I'm
activity and violence.
sick of seeing people that are supposed to be looking out for the betterment of the population in this province and in this city not doing their job. The leadership is lacking, and that means that other things are being looked at and done before anything to help the population and the citizens.
Well, you know, I'm going to give you an example. Portage and Main.
Portage and Maine,
You know,
a waste of money.
They could have spent. Portage and Main was reviewed how many times and turned down, but no. Mayor Scott Gillingham, there he goes again. I'm going to get another ticket again. But
New
Mayor
floor.
Scott Gillingham decides that, well, we're going to spend billions of dollars on Portage and Main while Manitoba families are struggling. You became mayor to take care of Winnipeg people. Instead, you've raised taxes, you've made it harder for families to put food on their table, and it's impossible for people that are facing addictions or mental health to get help. And that's where your priority should be, the people.
Correct. That's
People
right.
first. That's the bottom line. We're going to go into another video, and this is going to take us all to where we want to be.
All to where we want to be. You better keep talking.
And I agree, there is no leadership, and we need leadership. And I'm hoping in the future that I can be a part of that and help your families and guide them and protect them and show them love and compassion. What a mayor and city council should be doing, because that's why we pay them. Are we good?
Oh, sort of.
We're sort of good. We're going into our next video here. And, Brad's kind of playing around with the computer.
Trying to make it all work here.
Remedy
tonight.
back,
Some of these-
Brad.
Some of
Love
these
you
videos
both
are a little bit
for
tough.
speaking up and helping people, of course. This gives you a little bit of a break from ranting.
Debbie Lammer, they're called leadership.
Leadership.
Here we go.
CBSA officers examined a commercial truck at the Boissevain Port of Entry in southern Manitoba. Officers discovered and seized 406 kilograms of suspected methamphetamine, which is approximately 4 million illicit doses with a street value of over $50 million. This is the largest CBSA seizure of illegal narcotics to ever occur in the Prairie region. The driver was carrying a shipment destined to Winnipeg. He was arrested by the CBSA and transferred to the Manitoba RCMP along with the suspected narcotics. The driver has been charged with importation of methamphetamine and possession of a controlled substance for the purpose of trafficking, both contrary to the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. The individual is scheduled to appear in Manitoba law courts on February 1st, 2024. On January 14th, CBSA officers examined a commercial truck at the Boissevain Port of Entry in southern Manitoba. Officers discovered and seized 406 kilograms of suspected methamphetamine, which is approximately 4 million illicit doses with a street value of over $50 million. This is the largest CBSA seizure of illegal narcotics to ever occur in the Prairie region. The driver was carrying a shipment destined to Winnipeg. He was arrested by the CBSA and transferred to the Manitoba RCMP along with the suspected narcotics. The driver has been charged with importation of methamphetamine and possession of a controlled substance for the purpose of trafficking, both contrary to the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. The individual is scheduled to appear in Manitoba law courts on February 1st, 2024. On January 14th, CBSA officers examined a commercial truck at the Boissevain Port of Entry in southern Manitoba. Officers discovered and seized 406 kilograms of suspected methamphetamine, which is approximately 4 million illicit doses with a street value of over $50 million. This is the largest CBSA seizure of illegal narcotics to ever occur in the Prairie region. The driver was carrying a shipment destined to Winnipeg. He was arrested by the CBSA and transferred to the Manitoba RCMP along with the suspected narcotics.
All right, that's just a double shot of it, so just so you know.
You know what's really frustrating? This is what I'm talking about. This guy was in court February 1st, 2025. Guess what? $50 million value of street drugs. Do you know how many kids that would have killed? How much addiction that would have caused? How much death that would have caused in our city if it would have hit our streets? Guess what the judge did? If you think I'm crazy when I'm fighting this catch and release program, and if you think I'm crazy when I say the justice system is failing us, this guy got released on bail.
Bail?
$50 million, a street value of drugs, and catch and release is alive in our city. And like I say, the more I talk about this, the more city officials and the government seem to be attacking me. But this is a very real, true situation that's happening in our streets. We need to put a stop to these rotating doors at the court systems.
That's right.
What's wrong with these judges? Like, what are they thinking when they release a guy with this? It doesn't matter if he was just a driver. If anything, this person should have been deported back to his country in a fast second. And if you don't agree with that, too bad. That's just the way it should be. And what Pierre is saying is absolutely true. With this kind of drugs, especially fentanyl and the stuff that they had, instant jail sentence, 15 years. See you later, you're gone. You know, they give, what are those guys called who stood up at the Freedom Rally and are still in jail?
The Coots Boys?
The Coots Boys. The Coots Boys simply stood up for freedom, set up stuff for freedom convoys, and guess what? They're still in jail today. Well, this guy here roams around with all this, all these drugs in his truck, and is released the very next day.
No, that's so he can let all the big guys know.
This should put a furious frustration in your hearts, because this could have been your kids, your family members, who would have been taking some of this on purpose or not on purpose. You know, a lot of this stuff that's been put, like we talked in the beginning, just in street marijuana.
I don't know too many people that just sit down and want to do fentanyl. It's mixed with other stuff.
And they mix fentanyl in everything to make it more powerful. It's frustrating. It's time for us to stand up to our officials and say, enough's enough. I said it over and over again. The catch and release program is absolutely disgusting.
It sure is. You know what else is disgusting?
Yep.
Our next video. Oh man, I hate that guy.
Okay, are you ready?
Not really. If he's going to start talking, we're in a lot of trouble.
Now,
'cause
for
I don't
those
wanna hear
people
him.
that thought that, you know, the conspiracy theorists were all wrong, and we were guiding people in the wrong way, and we're going to die, and we have no life, and we're not real human beings because we're not part of society because we didn't get vaccinated. Maybe watch this, share this with your friends, like, share.
Yeah, you know, when you share
Like,
this,
share.
when you share this now, it actually lasts a little bit longer than say an hour or a half an hour. Facebook isn't taking this stuff down quite as quickly anymore.
Like, share, and follow.
I put some stuff up on Wake Up Canada News recently, and you know what? They haven't taken it down yet. And I've been heavy on the criticism of both, well, the U.S. and Canadian governments. But I'm just surprised that we're getting a little bit of freedom back.
Well, I think the little rodent.
Sure ain't
Don't say
because
the
of this.
word rodent.
It sure ain't because of this clown, though. Here we go.
Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci?
I am a scientist who uses the scientific method to gain information.
Yes or no? Yes or no?
No, that's not a yes or no
Yes,
answer.
it's a yes or no.
I don't think it is.
Okay, well, we'll take that as a you don't know what you represent.
Oh, I
Mr. Fauci, did you send anyone inside the Wuhan or the Winnipeg lab that maybe sent something to Wuhan? Just asking.
But this, as director of the NIH, you did sign off on these so-called scientific experiments. And as a dog lover, I want to tell you this is disgusting and evil, what you signed off on, and these experiments that happened to beagles paid for by the American taxpayer. And I want you to know Americans don't pay their taxes for animals to be tortured like this. So the type of science that you are representing, Mr. Fauci, is abhorrent. You confess that you made up the COVID rules,
I didn't hear
including
what you
6
said.
feet social distancing and masking of children.
I never
You
said
just-
I made anything up.
You admitted that you made it up. You
I
made it
didn't
up
say
as you went.
I made it up.
So are you saying this is fake news, Mr.
I
Fauci?
didn't say I made anything up.
What did you say?
I said that it is not based in science and it just appeared.
But this is science.
What a clown.
And making up guidelines like 6 feet distancing and masking of children. Do you think that's appropriate? Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor, you're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes. No, I don't need your answer. That man does not deserve to have a license. As a matter of fact, it should be revoked and he belongs in
Don't let me
prison.
suspend.
Here you are without your mask, where you got to go and enjoy the game and sit right next to people not following the 6 feet of distancing, not wearing your mask, and everyone else was forced to stay home and stop enjoying life. And your science here, your science is displayed perfectly in this picture where children in school were put in plastic bubbles because of your science, your repulsive, evil science. And let's go back to your very own email. You said earlier you don't use email. Oh, you do. Right here. This is your own email where you said the typical mask you buy in the drugstore is not really effective in keeping out virus. I do not recommend that you wear a mask. This is your email. This is your own words. But yet children all over America were forced to wear masks. Healthy children forced to wear masks, muzzled in their schools. And then they were forced to learn from home because of your so-called science and your medical suggestions, while you and all your cronies get paid from Big Pharma. You know that what this committee should be doing? We should be recommending you to be prosecuted. We should be writing a criminal referral because you should be prosecuted for crimes against humanity. You belong in prison, Dr. Fauci.
He's scared. You can see it on his face how scared
It's
he
not
is. Eh?
based on science.
No,
It's not based on science. It just appeared.
out of nowhere.
I wish people who still fight against us on this COVID mandate would watch this and be educated that this is the doctor that reported to the President of the United States and clearly said that masks did nothing. I've been telling people for a long time, those masks that they got us to wear did absolutely zero. The 6 foot distancing thing, oh, we made that up. Did they ever test the vaccine like they said they did for the use of it on children? Absolutely not. Zero testing done on the vaccine, but they lied to us and said, oh, your children are safe. We've tested this vaccine. Instead, they're abusing animals. Unbelievable. Gonna go into this.
It's not another video.
Man, it makes me just crazy to believe that the world went through hell, literally hell, and we survived it. Where children were put in little tents to play music
Yep.
for something that didn't even exist. He even says it nationally that the 6 foot distancing thing didn't work. Being put in a tent obviously didn't work either. You got to laugh about this now because it's actually funny that people fell for all the gimmicks and all the things that they made up and made people believe.
They were-
And how gullible are we to believe these pathetic lies? And when you tell the truth, here it is, perfect example. Lie, truth. People get mad at you when you tell the truth, but they believe you when you tell a lie.
Always
We're
the
going to
opposite.
go into one more video and
No,
then
we're
we're going
not.
to ask the funeral director. Well, it's not really a video,
Well,
but
so why are you
it's
saying it's a video?
well, it's
It's a picture.
a picture.
It's not a video.
Holy, you're a grumpy old man today.
I am.
Put up the
The picture?
put up the picture.
There's the picture.
So there's the picture. So how the heck do the Simpsons do this? So we've seen on the show and all over the place how the Simpsons are predicting things over and over again. This is the helicopter plane crash that was predicted.
Well, this is a helicopter
Well,
plane
it's,
crash,
it's-
not the.
No, but it's pretty close because that's exactly what happened. How did they know that? Is it coincidence?
They know everything.
Does the guy have a time capsule? Is he like
No, it's one of those
in some
future machines.
future machine? Wouldn't you? But it's unbelievable that that's actually predicted. And The Simpsons is quite the show. You know, I mean, a lot of people have been watching it and rewatching it now because of the predictions. And 2025, if you see what they're predicting for 2025, it's pretty scary.
Yep.
gotta wonder.
2030 is going to be worse.
Hopefully 2025, nothing on that is real. Well, it's time to get into Ask the Funeral Director. Are you ready, Brad?
I'm ready.
We're ready. Are you ready? Don't forget to like, share, and follow this show.
I'm pretty sure they're ready too.
You
Here we
ready?
go.
You
Question
ready?
number 1 tonight. Do you ever see pesticides or worms in a human body that you work on? Terry Good wants to know.
Well, Terry, good. Thank you for that question. So parasites in the human body after death do exist. We don't see them often. We do see lice, scabies. Maggots are probably the most sufficient that we see as funeral directors. So internal parasites like tapeworms, not very common at all. How do we handle parasites as funeral directors? Universal precautions, meaning we wear gloves, masks, gown, and that's how we fight these parasites. The body is cleaned and sanitized with disinfectants and antiseptics and antiseptic solutions, and this helps us to deal with it. The embalming process is really difficult when somebody wants to see a loved one, and clearly we have stuff that we don't want you to see, like for example, maggots. So the body's embalmed using fluids and chemicals that kill most parasites and bacteria, preventing further decomposition. Now, the big question people have, how do you remove maggots from a deceased body? And I know it sounds gross, and I know it's disgusting, but it's Ask the Funeral Director. So I've seen bodies literally where there's hundreds of maggots in the body. At times I've reached over to grab somebody and lift them to put them into a cremation container, and the maggots are crawling up your arms, as disgusting as that sounds. So they're physically removed. So a funeral director physically has to remove the maggots in order for a body to be viewed, or, to make sure every maggot is gone. So when you're doing a funeral service, you don't have a maggot crawling out of the nose or out of the mouth or any other part of the body. So we physically remove them, and then it's treated. The cavity is treated with something we call cavity fluid, and the cavity fluid is pretty powerful, and it would usually kill any other parasites that are physically on the body. So parasites are more common in advanced decomposition. So that's in certain environments like really warm temperatures.
Maybe next time you could bring pictures or a book.
Oh, we got pictures of that, and it's
I don't want to see any of that.
It's not very good. But maggots, there's a lot of ways of getting maggots. A fly, one fly can create an outburst of maggots. Debbie goes, ugh.
Yeah, I'm going, I haven't even eaten supper, I feel like, ugh. Ugh. Okay, Sophia's got a great question, and this is, settle down here because we're going to have to take this seriously. Unfortunately, Sophia's daughter passed away this week. The medical examiner's office informed us that an external autopsy would be needed. She says she's not quite sure what this means. Mike, what's an external autopsy versus an internal autopsy?
So external autopsy is when they take your loved one into their care, and they're not doing any cutting. They're not doing an autopsy. They're walking around the body and doing an external examination, and sometimes taking, of course, fluids, blood samples, and all the things they need to do. But the good thing about it is they're not doing any cutting, and they're not, removing any organs. They're basically just walking around.
There's none of the organs going into that bag, viscera bag.
Oh,
right?
you're learning.
Yeah, I'm learning.
You're learning the viscera bag, so nothing like that happens. Just want to say hi to my brother Pete, my brother Nick, Sharon, Josh, for watching the show tonight.
That's great.
Thanks for watching the show. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
Yeah.
Lily wants to know, how quickly did you get desensitized to death?
Oh, Lily, let me tell you something. That's a question I get asked quite often. Desensitized to death. That never happens. You're never desensitized. I've been a funeral director for 26 years, and every day is a new day, and every family is a new family. And you never get desensitized to the point where nothing bothers you anymore. You don't cry. You don't have feelings. You don't feel for the family. Your heart doesn't break for people's losses. I'm probably as real as they get when it becomes a funeral director. Sitting in an arrangement office and dealing with a tragic death puts tears in my eyes in a fast second. And I truly have a heart of compassion, and I'd say a heart of gold when it comes to dealing with families. And I feel every bit of their pain, even though it's 26 years later. Sometimes you kind of wish that you were desensitized and you can't feel the pain that other families feel. But I do, and have gone through it in my own personal life. So I'm glad that I'm able to go through the motions with the family and understand that the pain that they're feeling and the hurt that they're feeling. Because losing a loved one is never easy. Even when you expect a death, you really never expect a death. And people get told bad things all the time, and it's a roller coaster ride. When you're dealing with death, the death of a loved one, you're going through that roller coaster ride in the hospital of, oh no, he'll be okay. Oh no, he's doing terrible. He's going to die. No, he's going to live. It's a roller coaster that you go through the hospital. And then finally, when you're dealing with that death, it's a feeling of unbelief. It's a feeling of shock. It's a feeling of, is this really happening? And even when you go through the funeral service and that whole thing, it's almost like a dream that you wish you could wake up from. And I feel that way about my brother sometimes, almost a dream that you wish you could wake up from. And I said this many times before, and I'll say it again. I wish there was a reset button that you could push once and just reset everything that happened and do it all over again. Unfortunately, God did not provide us with that button. So we just have faith in life after death.
Absolutely. Our next question comes from Madison. Do people lose their color in their face when they're dead? And if so, how do you make them look normal for an open casket viewing? Is it all makeup, Mike?
Oh, a little bit has to do with cosmetics. But embalming is a big part of making somebody look natural. So embalming is a skill. And if you have a talented embalmer, he could do pretty amazing things to bring natural color back into a body. And yes, if a person dies of a heart attack, for example, there's a bluish color in the face. So the body changes colors quite often after death, depending on the cause of death. So it's the skill of the embalmer that can bring natural color back into the face and into the fingers and into the hands. So when you see a person, they look lifelike. So a funeral director, really what he creates is an illusion of somebody looking alive, an illusion of somebody maybe sleeping. But it's the hard work of the embalmer. And then the touch-up of the cosmetics. And if you have somebody really good doing cosmetics, you'll never know that the person's even wearing cosmetics. And I do that quite often. And when I work with cosmetics, I try my best to make the person look as natural as possible, even if it's a female, and especially a male. And you would never know that they're wearing cosmetics. Why? Because we take our time and we put our heart into it, and we make sure that that person looks 100% presentable for their family.
Yeah, I've got auto-tune for your face on the program right now, just making sure you look good all the time.
This is natural.
You're sure it is.
T says, they all look dead to me. No, not if you come the voyage. We give a lifelike look to people's loved ones. We really do. And it's one of our goals is to make a person look as lively as we possibly can. And of course they're deceased. And I remember not saying the wrong thing to a little kid. I remember once this little guy was at a funeral service and his dad had passed away. And he was probably about 6 years old, and he tugged on my suit jacket and he said to me, "Mister, is my dad sleeping?" And you have to answer this question properly. And I said, "No, your dad's not sleeping." And I looked down at him and I said, "Your dad's in heaven. He's in a place of peace, but he's not sleeping. He's gone." And the little kid looks at me and he said, "What do you mean my dad is gone? Like, is my dad dead?" And I said, "Yes, your father has died, but he's gone to a better place." And then his mom came and helped me explain death to the child. So it's really important when you're dealing with a family to make sure that you explain death to a child the right way. Don't lie to them. Just tell them the straight truth. And one day they'll appreciate that when they get old enough.
Is it sometimes scary to be around dead bodies when you're by yourself, Mike?
Well, one of our guys that work for us, we're at our Morris Chapel today, and he says to me, he texts me and he goes, "Mike, I got this really creepy feeling out of the corner of my eyes." He goes, "I'm seeing figures and people and all kinds of things." He goes, "I need to get out of here." And I said to him, "Mike, you're not seeing anything. It's just your imagination. Your imagination is playing on you." Am I scared to be alone with bodies in the morgue? No. What I am scared to do is leave the funeral home sometimes, because the people who are deceased in the funeral home cannot hurt you. And if you believe in God and you have God in your heart, you know that he will protect you. It's when you walk out of that funeral home and walk out to the streets of Winnipeg that you have to worry, because that's where somebody can hurt you, not the deceased people. The deceased people, I have a lot of care and compassion for and a lot of sympathy. So we make sure that we do the best to take care of them, do the right thing for them. And if they ever could come back and do something to you, they say, this guy's doing the best job he possibly can. He's taking care of us.
Mary Lou had a good question tonight on the chat. She said, "Can you smell death, Mike?"
Oh boy, can you ever. So I got to be honest with you.
Everything's good in here right now? Just making sure.
Got to be honest with you. Sometimes, you're at a restaurant having something to eat, and something just brings out that smell of death that you're used to in the morgue, and you just lose your appetite. Death is a really strong smell. Listen, there's nothing pretty about death. Like I said, it's all an illusion. When somebody dies, there's nothing pretty about it. And yes, bodies do smell, and the smell is sometimes overpowering, sometimes to the point where you need to put Vicks in your nose so it deflects the odor. So yes, not all bodies smell. Like you can have a morgue full of people, and sometimes there's no smell at all. But then sometimes if you get somebody who's decomposed, somebody who's been maybe in a fire, drowning, one of these terrible deaths, there is definitely a foul odor in the morgue.
Yuck. What's the worst funeral home screw-up you've ever seen or heard about? Wrong ashes given to a family, embalming that went wrong. Just curious, because you're in the industry, Grace says.
This is a story that I heard. It's a true story. So what had happened is a funeral home in Winnipeg one time had two of the same caskets. a male and a female.
Dun,
So
dun, dun.
because they didn't do their job properly, the one casket goes to the church, the other casket to another church, and the funeral director opens up the casket, and the family walks up to the casket in horror as they see a lady in the casket when their father was supposed to be at the funeral service. And that family was terrified, shocked, very upset, and the church was packed. At the other end, the same thing happened, where a family opened up the casket, and there was that gentleman in that casket where they were expecting a female. Total screw up in funeral service. I won't say which funeral home it is, but can you ever fix anything like that?
Always check the casket.
Can you ever fix anything like that? I would say the answer to that is no. You've left a devastating thought process in that family's mind that they'll never, ever forget in the history of their living lives.
That's a tough one.
And then there's another time I remember, and I know the funeral director that did this, 2 suits in the morgue, and they put the wrong suit on the one person, wrong suit on the other person. Family gets there and says, hey, that's not the suit that my dad's supposed to be wearing. That's also devastating because people take a lot of time to pick the clothing that they want their loved ones to wear in the casket. And a lot of times the person who's ready to pass away picks their own clothing and puts it aside and says, this is the clothing that I want to wear when I pass away.
Yeah, I'm going to pick in case my mom's still alive, and she has to pick like when I was a kid, because that was horrible.
Your mommy's going to put you in pajamas?
No, she probably put me in polyester.
John says, I think that would be hilarious. Which one, John? The wrong person at the funeral or the wrong suit?
Okay, Mike, your job's pretty cool. Is it what you've always wanted to do? Or did you do something else prior to becoming a funeral director and embalmer?
I'll give you a short rundown of my life. So
this ought to take about 2 seconds.
Are you ready? This will be really quick. So when I was in high school, I took broadcasting at TechVoc High School. I started the TVHS radio station. It was a TechVoc High School radio station. I worked in the music industry for a while, being a DJ for a company called Crystal Sound. Soon after that, I opened up my own business called Midnight Sound. And then I bought Roadshow Sound, Sonic Sound, and a bunch of music companies. So I was a DJ all my life. That's what I did. And in the back of my heart, I always knew I wanted to be a funeral director. But you had to be old enough for people to respect the fact that you had a little bit of, you looked the part. You know what I'm saying? Not the long hair, mustache, the whole works that the DJ had. So years later, I followed through with my dream, and I passed on my music companies to my younger brother, Kyriakis, and I moved on to going to school, becoming a licensed funeral director, licensed embalmer, and that's where I am today. Would I choose to do anything else? It was a perfect career for me in my life. There's only one other thing that I possibly want to do in my life, and if that's God's goal for me to do, I will do it and be a true leader, and it's something else I've always wanted to do. So yes, being a funeral director is an amazing job. It's doing what the Bible tells you to do. Comfort those that need to be comforted. And that's what you do every day as a funeral director. And you can do a lot of good, which we do as a funeral home.
Can I give him my version of your life?
Brad and I used to work together as DJs.
Well, I worked for you.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I worked for you. So basically, Mike partied, got everybody married up, enjoying life, and then now he's with you when you're dying.
There you go.
So he's with you all facets of life.
You got
from
them to dance.
Your engagement, your social, your wedding, your wedding, and then, well, he's going to be there when you die too.
I did a lot of, I was an Elvis impersonator for a while. I did Elvis. No?
You did Elvis?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so
you,
life
you
is
dressed like Elvis and sang like Elvis? What?
I sang like Elvis. I didn't dress like him. Oh, yeah.
You got the lip
I
going
will
on.
bless my soul. What's wrong with me?
We can't get into that. That's too
What's
much.
wrong with me?
We don't have enough time left on the show to do that. Okay, would you meet people outside work, and would you tell them you're a mortician, or do they get creeped out about who you are as a person? Has it been a blessing, a curse, a non-issue with regards to your romantic life?
Romantic
Stella
life.
wants to know.
Romantic life? What romantic life? No.
Well, Sharon.
Kidding. Oh, Sharon, yes. Sharon, my wife, very romantic. I love her with a passion. She's my girl. But working in a mortuary, people, when you go out and people find out you're an undertaker, everyone wants to hear a story. Sitting around the campfire in the summertime at Buffalo Point, you share stories and people want to hear and ask you all kinds of questions. So being a funeral director is a pretty cool thing. And yes, people take attention to it. Some people won't shake your hands because they're superstitious. Other people don't want to really communicate with you because they're superstitious. And some people think that if you touch them, they're going to die. Man, there's some families who just think, this guy is death.
I've driven your hearses before, and as I'm driving down, say, Henderson Highway, I get to the intersection and red light hits, so I got to stop, and I look over and there's a guy at the bus stop, and I look at him and I go, "You're next."
And there's something about that. You're driving a hearse down the street, and everyone's staring at you, looking at what the hearse driver looks like. Yeah.
I'm coming for you.
As a funeral director, one thing you do ask yourself is, you wonder who's next. Like, it's a thing. Am I next? And it really...
You don't have that piece of paper in your pocket.
It really makes you question your mortality, like day to day. And you live life on the edge, but yet you're careful. And I've probably driven my son, Josh, crazy. "Josh, don't be doing this. Josh, don't be doing that. Josh, this could kill you." One of those dads, because you're dealing in the death industry all the time. You're kind of overprotecting your family members because you see all the deaths that happen and how they happen. And you talk to your kids about drugs. You talk to your kids about alcohol and the crazy things that they do. And you say, "Hey, look, this can result in, a really bad injury." So, yeah, I think being a funeral director changes the way you do things.
Okay, Ariana has a question. She says,
Ariana, that's a nice name.
Has working in a mortuary changed your views on religion or about what happens after we die? Like, have you learned anything from being there on the scene, on the spot?
I'm going to be honest with you. Being a funeral director, like I said, really questions your mortality. I really believe in life after death. I believe in Jesus, and I'm not afraid to confess that. I'm a Christian guy. The thing is, you still question your mortality, right? But, when you believe in God, you shouldn't fear death because we move on from this place to another place. So you have faith and hope in life after death. And I don't think I could be a funeral director working on numerous people if I didn't have that faith that there is life after death, that God forgives and we do things wrong, but you do have a second chance. And we have a loving and giving God. So I think there's forgiveness. And one thing as a funeral director, you try not to judge people, because you could be in their shoes tomorrow morning. So my faith has probably grown as a funeral director. And, even when a family member comes in my heart, I'm always saying a prayer for them. They don't know that. And even for deceased people, I'll touch their toes or, their hand and say a prayer for them, even though they're not there. And I know that's not my job as a funeral director, but sometimes it's just in your heart to do that, Mm-hmm. And it makes me feel good to believe in something, because can you imagine believing in nothing, that death is final? You never see anyone again. The ground is your final resting place. It's the end. Everything you did in life doesn't matter. It's just finished. And that reminds me, as a funeral director, you go into care homes, for example, mm-hmm. and you take people into your care. And you go into some care homes that are just empty. There's no pictures. There's no flowers. There's no sign of love. There's no sign of family. And then you go into other care homes where you see pictures and flowers and puzzles and the presence of family, and that person was loved and cared for, and family was always around them, and drawings on the walls of the grandkids of drawing pictures. And it breaks my heart when I go into a room and see that emptiness. So if you have a mom or dad or a brother or sister or somebody who's sick, please reach out and show them love. Because all we have is each other, and our parents need us. They were there for us when we were young. We need to be there for them when they're older. We need to take care of them and love them, and never leave your parents alone. No matter what you think they've done wrong to you, no matter what kind of hard feelings you have, just learn to forgive and love. So when we go to that care home, we see that love in the room, and it makes you feel good. And I want you to remember something. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what you have. Death is the final equalizer. And that's one thing I learned as being a funeral director. It just doesn't matter. Death is the final equalizer. Rich, poor, it's the same dark grave or the same cremator.
You ain't taking it with you.
You are not taking it with you. So Angela's still on the maggot thing.
Hey, do you find it sad when very few people show up to someone's funeral?
It's heartbreaking, Joan.
Well, how? I mean, look at it. Maybe everybody around me has died. I'm young.
Yeah, why don't you talk for a sec, Brad?
Okay, I can do that. Sure, yeah. Well, maybe, people are actually concerned. Okay, have you ever been around a rotting body and does it smell?
Hey, you forgot the other question.
Nah, the question's no.
It's a good question because I'm going to bring a story to that question. You can bring the camera back here if you want.
Well, I could.
People just don't want to see you. They want to see me too, Brad.
Okay, there you
Grumpy
go.
old
Talk
guy.
away.
So there's a heartbreaking story that I want to share about nobody at a funeral. So this happened during the COVID pandemic. 4 boys got into a fight in the arrangement office. They knew the dad wanted to be buried. They knew that he'd had a burial spot, but each son had a different view, and the vaccination stuff kicked in, and one brother told the other brother to get the you-know-what out, and the other brother swore at the other brother, and finally the one brother stayed and did the arrangements, and we set a time and a date for the service, and we show up to the church. It was a church on Marion. I'll never forget this, and it's 11 o'clock, 10 to 11, and there's nobody at the church. I'm talking nobody, and the priest comes up to me, and he goes, "Mike, what time is the service?" I'm like, "The service is at 11. And he goes, "It's 10 to 11. Where's the family?" So I phone the office and I go, "Is the service at 11 o'clock or is it at 1 o'clock? Did we show up at the wrong time?" And the office says, "No, the service is at 11 o'clock. I said, "Can I get the family's phone number?" And I phoned the family up, the last son who was there, and I said, "Hey, your dad's service is like 7 minutes." He goes, "We're not coming. None of us are coming." That was a heartbreaking day. There was nobody at that funeral service. We had a hard time getting the casket in the car because it was only the 3 funeral directors there. And then when we got to the cemetery, nobody showed up there either. So we had to ask the cemetery staff for help. That's a heartbreaking story. So yes, I have seen and feel bad for people that have almost nobody at their service.
That's why I'm not having no service, because nobody's coming.
Come on, Brad. Thousands of people would show up to your service.
Yeah.
You're a world-renowned announcer.
Yeah, you bet.
Oh, wait. Somebody else said that.
Have you ever been around a rotting body and does it smell as bad as they say, Mike? Sheila wants to know.
So that's a question I kind of answered earlier. So yeah, rotting bodies do smell terrible. There's a really, really bad odor when a body has been, for example, found in a house a week after in the really hot temperatures, or somebody found outside, or somebody found in the woods, people who were murdered, people that are, yes, there is a foul smell that comes from those bodies.
So when a person dies in a very violent death, such as being hit by a train or a burn victim in a fire, maybe gunshots or badly beaten, what is the protocol for handling the body or body parts? How do you embalm or preserve body parts specifically? Should there be an investigation at a later date maybe? Curious George is asking.
Oh, so Curious George, every body is embalmed the same. So it doesn't matter what
But
condition.
what if my arm was over there?
So we'll put your arm back where it belongs. I mean, listen, we've had people come into the funeral home where we're decapitated, no head. And then we will sew the person's, body back together so they can have a full viewing. And families are in disbelief.
You
because,
will?
Yeah. Well, snowmobile accidents, all kinds of stuff like that. So we can.
Bus trip?
That's what funeral directors do. That's what morticians do. Morticians are very special people. Funeral directors are very special people. They do things that you wouldn't even believe human beings can do. So you got to appreciate morticians, funeral directors for what they do and how they help you find closure. Because without closure, there's no healing. So when a family says, "Yes, we want to see our loved one," and the person was decapitated or lost an arm or whatever, what we do is an illusion, but we do a good job at it, and we make people look presentable for that final goodbye. And I'm never going to forget another one that we got where a person got eaten by a bear. So the bear, this happened in Manitoba. The bear had eaten a good part of this person's face and a good part of their body. And the family said, no, we want to see him. It doesn't matter what he looks like. We want to see him. We need that closure. We need to see him. So on top of that, he'd gone through through obviously an autopsy at the hospital. So I remember, I'm never forget working on that person and the skill it took to get chemical through arteries that we could find so you can have an open casket viewing for that family that just needed it for closure. It's crazy, some things that you have to do to allow families to be able to move on.
Well, there you go. 12 great questions on Ask the Funeral Director tonight. I don't know how we're going to beat that next week because there were some strange questions
You know
tonight.
what? The questions get pretty cool. If you ever have a question, askthefuneraldirector@gmail.com. Do us a favor. Please share, like, and follow the show. We thank you. We love you for watching the show. If it wasn't for you, the show would not be here. It's getting bigger and better, and we are going to make the show even more powerful in the future. God bless you and your families. Take care of yourselves and each other. Good night.
Good night, everybody.